This episode of the Police One podcast is sponsored by Officer Store. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting officerstore.com. Hey, welcome back to Policing Matters on policeone.com. I'm your host, Jim Dudley. And you may be listening, but you know we're on YouTube as well. So check us out there and you can see my guest. And unfortunately, you'll see me as well. Well, I'm sure across all our listener demographics that we have varying degrees of how we imagine policing. We hear that law enforcement may not be a calling to the next generation as it was to my generation. But is that true across the board? My guest today is a freshman at Florida University, and he is a big law enforcement supporter, so much so that he hosts his own podcast called Trust the Badge. Well, Jasur Talipov is the founder of Trust the Badge, a nonprofit organization and podcast dedicated to building trust between law enforcement and the community by giving a voice to law enforcement, government officials, and community leaders. We've met already. We talked before. Welcome to Policing Matters.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Jasur Talipov. I'm a high school senior as of right now. I'm actually going to graduate in 2 days, so I'm very excited for that. And I will be attending the University of Florida in the next fall, so I'm very excited for that as well. I am the founder of Trust the Badge. Trust the Badge is a nonprofit organization and podcast I have that is meant to build trust with the community. To build that middle ground between both sides is imperative. We've seen it that the defund the police movement has taken over many cities across the nation just a few years ago, and it's only left devastating impacts that needs to be reversed. So this podcast that I host has law enforcement, government officials, and community members to speak on their opinions and what they think should be changed in order to build that trust. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. You were highly recommended by the Rural Badge, Charlie Pitt, also known as Kathleen Diaz, a good
Right.
friend, and she writes on behalf of rural and small town police officers, a niche that we don't really recognize, even though 90% of law enforcement agencies are 50 officers or less. So they should
Right.
have a voice. And how'd you come into contact with Kathleen?
Well, she interviewed me for a Police One article. The interview went well, the article went well, but before that, I was just cold emailing, just random news networks and publications such as Police One to just push the message of Trust the Badge out there. So I'm very lucky that Trust the Badge got the outreach it needs because it's a message that's very necessary in today's society, especially in different areas of the country, not necessarily where I live, but in some other areas of the country, it's definitely needed. So thank you to Ms. Kathleen Diaz for giving me an interview on Police One for an article. It was a great article. Go read it if you can. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to put the link in for show notes for our listeners and viewers to check out. Yeah, you're 100% right. Totally needed to bridge the gap. Gen Z and beyond. I had you as an incoming freshman, not quite yet. You got 2 days of high school left. But hey, you know what? Law enforcement, we should be reaching out at the very latest high school. I know some states will hire 18-year-olds for corrections and some policing jobs. Definitely, we should be introducing young people into the culture because like all you know so far really is what you see in the movies or on TV, right? Did you know any cops before you started this?
Well, the way I started was by volunteering at my local police station. As I've told you before on my podcast on Trust the Badge that will be soon be published, our interview. But I joined my local police station after COVID to give service to my community, to help out. And one of the opportunities I found was the local community police station in at my local shopping mall. So I signed up, I got approved, and that's how I started to meet police officers, law enforcement, and have a sort of bonding relationship with them and get to know who they are. Slowly, as I progressed through my volunteering hours and days, I realized that just by looking outside of the window out into the shopping mall, you can just see just all sorts of people just walk through in and out. And what sometimes bothered me was this one response that some people saw when they saw the word police on the police station. When they saw the word police, one, they either just went throughout their day, they didn't really care so much. The next reaction was they saw the word police, they took a picture like, oh, that's funny, there's a police station in the mall. But the third reaction, what I saw some of the time, but even though some of the time it still bothered me, was how they were either completely disgusted or they just turned around and walked to another entrance of the mall to not be seen by law enforcement. So that's when it hits me that there is this distrust between the people who I know inside of the police station who are there to protect and serve their communities, and there are those who believe that they are not there to do that and instead try to avoid them at all costs. And number two, that's how I sort of got the encouragement to start Trust the Badge. But number two, the defund the police movement, as I just told you, was devastating. It was every headline across the nation after the death of George Floyd. And although the police officer who murdered George Floyd was wrong, that does not mean that every other police officer in the United States of America is the same way. But that's how it was viewed. It was viewed as every police officer is the exact same. Every police officer is racist or of some sort. That's how law enforcement was viewed across the nation. And that's why I believe that law enforcement was just not getting a voice on any sort of level. So I started Trust the Badge.
Nice. So what's your response been so far? You've highlighted a number of publications. I've seen your articles. You've been on the news and Kathleen's article on Police One. What's been the response?
The response has been very positive. Including with you, I got to connect with you through that article. So after Miss Diaz's article on Police One, I was able to connect with you and three other people that are actually going to be on my podcast as well. So I've been very glad to have the opportunity to network from these media channels and publications such as Police One, because now I'm getting to spread the message of Trust the Badge more and more.
So sitting at the desk at the mall,
Right. Right.
um, you're there helping out. Were people like wondering, like, what's this young guy doing here?
Yeah, I got that reaction a lot. So some people were like, "Oh, how much do you get paid?" I don't. So that was one of the reactions I got. Like, "Wow, you must have a really cool job. I mean, how much do you get paid?" I would just tell them, I don't. I just do this for the hours. I do this to help out my community, and I was happy doing it. I was happy to help out law enforcement, and my main priorities at the station were to help out with technology, with the computers, the police officers, but mostly I was fingerprinting. So, as you may know, some police stations have this, but if you need documentation of or licensing of some sort, you need to get your fingerprints submitted to the FBI or whatever agency that may need them. And I was the one to do the either paper fingerprinting or computer online fingerprinting. So
Yeah,
that's what I was there to do.
nice. And so those are people walking through the mall. What about your peers? What's their reaction been?
My friends have been very supportive. I've been very glad, but also I have the most supportive parents because I couldn't have been where I am today without my parents and my family. Because since I started Trust the Badge from day one, they've all been supporting it. They've all thought that was a great cause, and they've done everything they could to also tell their friends and other people about Trust the Badge as well. So a huge shout out and thank you to my family. But my friends have also been extremely supportive. They, for example, they repost some of my episodes and they even my news, my Fox 35 news video, as well as my News 6 video, they also reposted. So I'm very glad that I have a very supportive support. I have a very great support group.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so that's sort of counter to the narrative that we've been hearing since 2020. That do you get a feeling that things are changing about attitudes towards police?
It depends on the region for sure. I believe in some places, such as here in Florida, where I live, I think we're well off because we have a very strong police state where we give bonuses to law enforcement per year. We give, I believe, about a $5,000 bonus for officers coming in out of state to come work in the state of Florida. So we have a great police network here in the state of Florida, which is why we don't have as much defund the police movements or any of that sort because we're very very supportive. But in other areas, such as in a study of Newsweek I read in 2022, there was a city in Burlington, Vermont, where when they defunded their police, what happened was not only did the officers who left, but there were additional officers who were discouraged from working at all.
Hmm.
So the amount of police officers that left their jobs in that city skyrocketed, leaving for crime rates to increase substantially. And now the city is recovering. You can read this on CBS News, I believe, and on Newsweek Global. But this is an article that I read that I found was very interesting. How some cities want to completely or almost remove the entire police force compared to places where I live, where we support our police force.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of the smaller agencies fold because of lack of staffing, really tough
Right.
times recruiting. It takes a while for some of the larger agencies to really feel it, but here where I am in my old department, San Francisco Police Department, they're down over 500 officers. I'm going to ask you what you feel from your generation would be the key to recruitment. But is there an active, going back to your peers in your school, is there a program, an introductory program at your high school where there's a youth in the law class, or how'd you get into even finding out to volunteer?
Well, we don't, at my high school, I go to a private school called Trinity Prep. We don't necessarily have that, but just knowing and searching, looking around what I can do to help my community, I did find the police station. However, you could join your local explorer group. So, if many of you who are listening do not know this, many police stations have an explorer program where they recruit teenagers from 13 to 17 years old to help out with city events, to train as if you're a police officer at such a young age to get a head start. So if that's available in your local police department, please join it. Please check it out, because there are many police officers out there who are willing to teach you and show you what it is to be a police officer. So,
Yeah, that's ironic you mentioned that. That's how I started in my last year of high school. Um, a gal that I knew asked me if I wanted to join, and I did because of her, not because of the police, but it really became a calling for me. And I don't know that I would have ever done that unless I joined that program. So
right.
yeah, it's that culture. It's like understanding the culture. And for a lot of people, like I said, they learn about it in the movies or TV, or they see police cars going back and forth, maybe lights and sirens, maybe they get pulled over.
Mhm.
There's that sense of disassociation where they don't really see cops as real people. At what point did you say, "Oh yeah, I mean these guys are real. They're doing a job, a service for the community. I think I want to get involved in that."
Well, after, like I said, talking to them in the police station, I realized they're just humans like us. They're not superhumans. They don't have superpowers that we don't have. They're simply humans who put their lives in danger every single day to protect and serve their communities. So once you get to actually talk to a police officer, get to know them, and have just a nice conversation, you understand that all they do is to protect you. That's
Mhm.
their main job, is to serve their community. So I'm very glad that we have people like that out there who are willing to put their lives on the stake every day.
Yeah. Well, good to have you, and your efforts are definitely going noticed, and I hope you're part of the movement. Hey, I want to
I hope
ask
so
you
too.
about some of those things, but first, let me take a break. Thank our sponsor. We'll be right back. Officer Store, equipping protectors with passion. That's how we operate, and it's how we live. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit us at officerstore.com. And we're back, and we talked about recruiting on your podcast. From your perspective, what do young people think about the application and the testing process? Have you seen it yet?
Not much, but what I can tell you is from my age group and this generation, being a police officer isn't as much of a job that many people are willing to do, rather than I think other generations would. Just because now we have social media, we have all sorts of new jobs, and people my age want to become influencers. And as you may know, that's a huge thing now. But there are a lot of things that people would want to do nowadays that not many others would do before then. Speaking of police officers, though, the way to really get involved and to be in it is just find out if there's a local explorer program, if there's some sort of recruiting college next to you that has police training classes, citizens academy. There are all sorts of programs that you can try to really look and get a good perspective of it. I luckily have been able to just look into and join my local Explorer program, see what they have to offer and what it's like to be a police officer. And it's not easy to be a police officer. I'm sure not many people know this that are not law enforcement, but law enforcement, you have to memorize a whole list of codes, 10 codes, signal codes, and it's a lot of memorization, as well as everything is very procedural. So if you don't know about any of that and you're really interested, just go look into it. See if your local police station has a Explorer program. Join it. It's very fun. You get to meet a lot of new people and learn great lessons and valuable things from police officers.
Yeah, no, totally get what you're saying. And just for the record, the whole memorization of the 10 code and all the other radio call codes come after you're hired. So I keep telling my students, hey, they don't expect you to be a police officer. Just use common sense, reading comprehension, very little math, thankfully for me, and then verbal communication skills, some problem solving. So I
Right.
think, somebody smart like you, no problem with the
Thank you.
testing. I think agencies are doing more now, getting into schools to give pre-tests, to give online testing, to give you an idea, a sample of what's there to come. And then certainly the physical agility skills. I get students, I teach college and I hear students saying, yeah, I don't know, I got noodle arms. I don't know if I could do all those push-ups or sit-ups or make the run. And I think, tell me if this is true. I think there's a fear of failure from today's young people who would rather not even try rather than take it and fail.
I think that's true, but that does need to be changed because if you try it, that's the only way you'll ever get to know what it's like. If you look at it from a distance and say that, oh, I can't do that because as you were just talking about an example, I have noodle arms. Okay, well, go see if you really do. If that's the case, then go and try harder. I mean, if that's the job that you want to go into, that's the career, and it's not just a job; it's truly a career. Law enforcement is a very extensive career, and it goes into your life very meaningfully and it transitions into you, as I've talked to many police officers on the podcast before. But yeah, definitely go try it first before you have any sort of thoughts about it beforehand.
Yeah, so I think the agencies that are doing that, holding either workout sessions or at least letting people try the tests, I think they're ahead of the curve.
They
By the
definitely are.
way, yeah, and for the record, the student who actually told me I can't do it because I have noodle arms, he's now a cop today. So
Wow. Yeah,
yeah,
right there. If you have any sort of thought that maybe I can't do it, just go give it a shot. You
yeah,
never know. Like that one student you're talking about, he became a cop. So try it out.
yeah. And what about mentorship? Did you ever have someone who served as a role model for you? Did you see maybe even from afar a police officer and said, "Yeah, I'd love to talk to that guy and figure this out"?
Sure. From the police station I volunteered at, I had many role models. My training officer, Officer Smith, he was the one that showed me around the police station. He showed me how to do fingerprinting. He showed me how to work the social media. He showed me how to work the computer system with the Excel sheets and everything. He was a role model to me because that's how I learned how to volunteer and get to know people and get to volunteer at the police station. And other people's that were role models were, for example, the chief of police, Chief James Riggs. I look up to him a lot just because he has helped me so much. As I just joined the police station as a volunteer, he was very open to me. He showed me around. He communicated to me a lot, and he was a great role model because he really cares about having a strong family approach in law enforcement. As how if you're retired, if you're just a volunteer, if you're on the job, it's still one big law enforcement family. So values like those are really great to have, and I look up to those people as my mentors at the police station.
Yeah, that's great. And I hope, our veteran officers are listening and hearing that I think oftentimes they don't realize they are role models or even becoming mentors by just answering questions. Sometimes, it works so passively, but I really think agencies should get out ahead, aggressively, actively, uh,
Right.
to pursue maybe some of the younger people that are interested in the job, maybe curious, but not quite
Sure.
ready to sign up on the dotted line.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the case. And recently, for my most recent episode on Trust the Badge podcast, I interviewed local county sheriff Grinnell, and I talked to him. He said the way he got into law enforcement was just by talking to the two deputies who would patrol at his high school football games, and they told him, "Yeah, just try it. You never know." But they gave him some great advice, and now he's the sheriff of Lake County, Florida. So I mean, seriously, all you need to do is just give it a shot, and it works out.
Yeah, for sure. So, with so many young people getting their news and information, and there's been several studies that show it, that there is no newspaper being turned or even television news being watched, but social media and some apps are giving the news. How can law enforcement agency get into that conversation?
That's a great question, and this has been shown within many police departments. But law enforcement, go get yourself a social media page. The only way to keep up, the only way to show the youth what law enforcement does and to advertise careers is to get with social media. Whether it's a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a Twitter handle, whatever it is, get on social media and show everyone what it's like to be in law enforcement, to show the younger generation that, hey, this is a career that you could be in. And especially now, police retention and police recruitment is at an all-time, almost an all-time low. We need more law enforcement now because there are many police officers leaving their jobs and not coming back. So law enforcement agencies, just for sure, get on social media.
Yeah, I mean the other side of that sword is that people sometimes feel that when they report a crime on social media that it's going somewhere when it's not. So I think
Right.
the agencies that do participate need to put that disclaimer out that, hey, we're not monitoring 24/7. Go call 911 if something's happening now. But
Absolutely.
yeah, but
Absolutely.
but making the headway and just like getting into the conversation, I think you have a great idea there. Just show routine traffic stop where there is no fight at the end or shooting or they speed
Absolutely. Yeah.
away. And I think, those interactions can really put a dimension on policing that people don't usually see.
Yeah, and definitely show community events because I know my local police station where I volunteer at, they host many community engagement events with the city. So it's very good to advertise that, to post on social media to show the community, hey, come out. We can have a nice time with you and honestly have a nice bonding time to build that relationship. So,
Yeah, and just to see them walking around.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we call management by walking around. Hey, so you're going to college. I got that straight. You are gonna be there in, I don't know, 4 months. Will you be launching a criminal justice club there or taking classes to get you better prepared?
Well, I will be studying political science. I'm not necessarily looking into a career in law enforcement, although I have considered it. Law enforcement for me is just not my it's not where I want to be as of right now. But as someone who has spoken with law enforcement and has a podcast dedicated to building trust between law enforcement and the community, I am willing to still connect with law enforcement and still actually run potentially a Trust the Badge student organization at the University of Florida. So that's one of the plans I have because right now my generation, we need this sort of outreach. So one of my plans is to launch a student organization at the University of Florida, the Trust the Badge student organization, to get young people like me involved, to see what's out there, to connect with the local sheriff's office, to connect with the local police department, even the university police departments, and have them come talk to these students and see what there is, as well as having events to maybe potentially fund community police stations. There's a whole lot of ideas that I have in mind that I really want to implement to continue Trust the Badge.
Yeah, well, that was my last question for you. Like, what are we missing in law enforcement? I got to tell you this, that so many agencies I've talked to and seen at community events, it's a table with stickers, some keychains, maybe a whistle, and it is so passive, right? That
Right.
we're waiting for people to come up and say, "Hey, sell me, give me the elevator speech." It shouldn't be like that. I mean, I think there's so many opportunities to bring a virtual reality headset, show
Hmm.
them,
Right.
have them run through some scenarios, talk about what the testing's like, go walk around and approach people. Hey, you look like you're an athletic guy or gal. Have you considered a role in serving your community with law enforcement? I think we're too passive in our recruiting efforts. What ideas would you have? Give us a glimpse.
Sure. So one of the ideas that I have seen from volunteering at my local police station again is from this event that we have it's called Family Fest. So during this time in the summer, we have a lot of organizations and companies come out and have set up tables, and including the police department sets up their own table. And then the rest of the city or whoever wants to join comes into the public park and gets to walk around, see what there is. There's food trucks. It's this whole thing where I'm like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea to bring people in. There's food trucks, there's so many tables, there's a lot of free items you can get. So that's an idea that I think a lot of people should look into, just because that's how you get a good amount of the population to look in and see what there is. But also, social media to advertise those sorts of events is what you really need, because the only other way people are going to get it is, again, from, I guess, watching the news, reading the newspaper. But as we just spoke about, that's not necessarily something that my generation is doing as much. So get social media, because I have social media, my friends have social media, a lot of people my age have social media. So if you have the opportunity to do so, definitely get Instagram, make an Instagram page, a Facebook page, whatever it is. I suggest Instagram just because Instagram is a bit more popular.
Hmm.
But get Instagram, start an Instagram page, post events that you would like to host for the community, including recruiting events, whatever it is. And that's how you'll start to get community members to be interested in what law enforcement has to share.
Yeah, good tips. And FYI, we have a Policing Matters podcast Instagram page.
That sounds
Uh,
great. Yeah, I followed it. I followed it.
yeah, so Police One does a great job at pushing out our articles and links to our um, YouTubes and our podcasts. A lot of articles. Yours and Kathleen is there. We're going to put that in the show links. What else are you working on? Are you expanding? Are you getting any feedback that you're reaching other areas of the country you weren't initially?
I actually am. So I'm very glad that I've been getting a lot of emails since my media interviews, my articles, and I've read every single one of them. And I'm glad that there are people out there who are listening. For example, about a week ago, I had someone email me after my radio interview from, I believe, New York. And they were emailing about me how they were actually a former fireman, but they had a very strong relationship with their police department. And he explained how there was the defund the police movement, and he talked about how the sheriff's office would always help, and all of these sorts of stories onto one email, and said that he really believed in what Trust the Badge is trying to accomplish. So I'm glad that there are people out there who are listening. I'm glad that I'm getting feedback. And honestly, if you any of you are listening right now and have feedback for me, go ahead and shoot me an email. Trustthebadge.com. You can find my email there. There's a contact form. Also, trustthebadge@gmail.com. Just shoot me an email. Tell me what you want to hear more of. Tell me what you have suggestions about or concerns, and really let me know, because what I'm trying to do is trying to bring you, the community, and law enforcement into one middle ground, because in some places today, that's what we really need. So, for sure.
Yeah, well, thanks for all your efforts, and maybe we'll try to convince you to sign up and take the test. But actually, you're doing a lot of good, and you've got a broader audience by what you're doing right now, just getting the word out. and I see a great future ahead for you in
Thank you.
political science. So if you have a change of heart, though, we probably have a seat for you at some police department. So don't
Thank you.
don't don't forget us as an option.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I will always remember that. And of course, what I'm trying to do is Trust the Badge again is just non-political at all. Trust the Badge doesn't endorse anyone. Neither does it host campaigns for anyone. Trust the Badge is supposed to be non-political, non-partisan, and just bringing a middle ground between the community and law enforcement. And I'm glad that there's progress being made. So
Nice, very nice. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time with us today. Good luck and congratulations on your graduation, and good luck on your first year at Florida. And I'm sure you'll be doing great there.
thank you, sir. I really appreciate you having me on this podcast. It means a lot for Trust the Badge. So thank you.
You bet. Hey, and to our listeners, you just heard from Jasur Talipov, and he's the founder of Trust the Badge podcast. You just heard trustthebadge.com. You can go check him out there. And we've got a link to the article that we were talking about. Drop me a line at policingmatters@police1.com. Let me know what you think. And just like he said, if you have an idea for a show or somebody you want to hear from, let me know. And check out Trust the Badge. It's so refreshing to see a young person trying to break that wall between generations and the community and police. We could use 1,000 more like him. All right, take good care. I hope to talk to you real soon, and stay safe.